My presentation tonight is called All Politics is Local, and this is probably the only time you will ever hear me quote a Democrat. But it happens to be Tip O'Neill, who used to have drinks with Ronald Reagan when he was Speaker of the House. And he is right. All politics starts right here in the county committee to which you belong or may want to belong. And so I'm going to give you first a little history of the GOP. It was established in 1854 in opposition to the Kansas-Nebraska Act. They were opposed to slavery being extended over into those territories. So they were absolutely, most of the people who made up the Republican Party were abolitionists, and they were opposed to slavery and wanted to get rid of it. The first candidate for president was General John Charles Fremont. That was in 1856, and then the very second candidate for president of the United States of the Republican Party was Abraham Lincoln, and of course we know he was successful. There have been 19 Republican presidents, more than any other party. You may not have known that, but I thought that was a nice little tiny factoid that you might like to hear, because it's nice to have some good news once in a while. And then they took the name Republican to honor Thomas Jefferson. And you know, if I'd really been thinking I'd have worn my Thomas Jefferson cat socks, I'll wear them next month. I have a cat named Thomas Jefferson because I love Thomas Jefferson. And so they did that because his party was a Democrat-Republican party, and so they called themselves Republicans. Does anybody, and then I put here, GOP, a lot of people, and I heard a report when in doing this research, only about 28% of people know what GOP stands for. It stands for Grand Old Party. And that came first, it was called the Gallant Old Party. You know, Southerners say gallant, but it's gallant. And that was in the congressional record, I think in 1875. So that's your little history lesson for the night. Then, where did the elephant come from? This here, this is a cartoon drawn by Thomas Nast, who was a very famous political cartoonist. Those of you who graduated high school before 1970 probably learned about him in high school in American history. He was probably single-handedly responsible for bringing down the Boss Tweed and the Tammany Hall scandal in New York. And so here, just so you'll know on here, right here it says the Republican vote. It was massive, like an elephant, and that's where the logo came from him, because he said, you know, we're so big. And then you see this right here, that is a donkey in sheep's clothing. Nothing has changed. This is from the 1880s. And I thought it would just be fascinating for you to see that. And then, of course, we have this modern one. I saw one and I almost put it in here because it had a white, it had a yellow hair, you know, like Trump on it. And then when I saw it, then I didn't pull it, and then I couldn't find it again. They, took it down or something. So that's your little bit of, just to have an idea. Now, I have here and on your handout, there's a list of sources, and on your handout is also the State Board of Elections. And the website is on there, but I want to mention one thing. When I worked at the federal level, it used to drive me nuts because of all these ABC and DEDEF and DEA and USM and all of these acronyms that we had to do. And so one time I asked a guy who had been a DEA agent for about 20 years, I said, what does such and such stand for? He did not know. I don't like them, but you're going to hear people say RNC, that's the Republican National Committee. You're going to hear them say RPB, Republican Party of Virginia. We don't say the GRP, we do say GRC, Goochland Republican, GCRC, Goochland County Republican Committee. We do that. Then everything you want to know about elections in the Code of Virginia is in Title 24.2, and you can also find that online. I put that there. that I put the website for all of these, and then you can also learn by going about things that you want to know by going to candidate websites. And so I use DonaldJTrump.com, and that's his official website. I did want to mention one thing before we get into the nitty-gritty of the committee. It takes two things to win elections: money and people. Okay, and you have to have both of them. You have to. It's a sorry day, but we're so big. You know, there are so many people now that you can't just knock on every single door. You've got to get your word out, and that takes money. And you've got to have people to help you. Years ago, when I was very active in the Republican Party in Roanoke County, and I was chairman of that party, I had a good friend who had moved back to Roanoke County from Memphis, I think it was. She could not stand these la-di-da women with all that money. She just could not stand them. And we had been to a lady's house who had in one night raised $15,000 on the telephone for George Bush Sr., first, number one. So we were having a luncheon, or actually two luncheons, a big luncheon, an expensive luncheon, and a little luncheon for people like me for Barbara Bush. And this lady got on the phone and she just raised money to pay for it. I had to give them a little bit of money. And so my friend Molly said that, and I said, Molly, we were on the way home. I said, Molly, we need people who just write checks, and we should never, ever resent them. They may not be good at knocking on doors or talking on the phone, but they know how to write a check, and we need that because you can't win with no money. It takes money to win. And so I wanted to be sure that you all understand that. And by your name, you know, you get onto these lists. If you decide you want to be a delegate to one of the conventions, you're going to be inundated from here on out until the day you die, or until you say, take me off your list, with emails. I get from the Trump campaign probably 6 to 8 emails a day or more, every day, every single day. And I even signed up to have an automatic thing every single month. And they still bug me to death in between. So, you know, but that's good. I'd rather they were doing that than not. Okay, so the local committee, that's us right here, right now. 2 definitions of Republican. A person advocating or supporting Republican government or Republican-style government, or a member or supporter of the Republican Party. Now, you could be a Republican, you know that, simply by saying, I'm a Republican. In this state, you do not have to register to vote by party. They'll ask you, but I do not. One of the reasons, and a friend of mine lives over in Albemarle County sent me a thing today about purging the rolls, the voter rolls in West Virginia. And so many West Virginians are switching to either independent or Republican. And some who are still Deeds by their name, because they can't work unless they have a deed by their name. People used to check. When we lived over there, my dad said that you couldn't, this was in the 40s and the 50s, you couldn't get a job unless you were a Democrat. If you were a Republican, you did not work. And this is one of the reasons that I have personally opposed registration by party in this state, because both parties will abuse it if they get a chance. Mm-hmm. They will. And so I'd rather we didn't have to say. I'd rather we could say, well, I don't have to tell you. You know, I've never made a secret about being a Republican. I'm proud to be a Republican. I've never been ashamed of it. But some people are. Well, we shouldn't be. So I just wanted to give you another definition that I heard years ago. Another definition is someone who learned to read is a Republican. Just want you to know that. Okay, so these are things to remember about local government. The local unit committee or county committee, those terms are interchangeable. This is a unit committee, local committee, county committee. It could be a city committee. I've been on the Roanoke City Committee, and I've been on 3 different county committees: Franklin, Goochland, and of course Roanoke. In our case, our local unit is the Goochland Republican Party. Members of the committee must be elected every 2 even years. Is this an even year, 2020? Yes, it is. At a mass meeting, or however the committee decides. We nearly always do a mass meeting, and most of you have been to a mass meeting at some time in your life. And you know, they're messy. I think I was quoting the paper saying that mass meetings are the, and I think I have it in here somewhere, the absolute beginning of democracy in this country is a local mass meeting. All you have to do is be a Republican. It is open to the public. It is not a committee meeting. It is open to the public. Anyone who says they're a Republican can apply to be elected to the committee, the governing body of the Goochland Republican Party. And that is based on the criteria set by the Republican Party of Virginia and by the call for the meeting. There's that word call that people hear. And it's a one-word answer to what is the call. And I've got to put that in the next slide. The call is a notice. It's simply a notice. Or we can dial it up some and say it's a formal notice of meeting. We're calling all the Republicans to assemble to make some decisions about things. That's what a call is. And next month, you're going to have an opportunity to work on one. We said we are, and it's going to take some time. So I would say do your homework. When this gets the draft gets sent to you, read it, so you'll know what we're talking about, and then bring it with you to the meeting. So the call is simply a notice of a meeting. The RPV, what's that? Republican Party of Virginia State Plan of Organization requires, that's in red, requires the unit committee to issue a call or notice for a mass meeting or other meetings. Now, the unit committee chair, Mr. John Myers, with the liberation and vote by the members here, by all of you all, issues the call or the notice, especially for a mass meeting. The chair issues the call for the monthly meetings. He has the authority to do that. And we get that. He said, I, John, we get those emails that say, I, John Myers, John Dana Myers, John D. Myers, issue a call for a meeting of the Republican Party of Goochland County. The call has to contain the date, the time, and the place of the mass meeting, and the business to be conducted at that meeting. We have to state exactly what business we're going to conduct. Here's the other thing. Once that call is approved, we can't conduct any other business. It becomes a legal document, and we can't just come up and say, and especially after it's approved and published, after it's published, we can't change anything. We just cannot. I've seen people try to do that. Doesn't work. The state party advises what is required to be included in the call. And John got that from the state party this week. And so we had started last Friday, we met, the exec committee met to start working on that. And then we get a sample of what all has to be included in our call from RPB. And so he'll start working and putting that together. It cannot be changed, as I said, once it's published. And that we publish on the RPB and unit website. It used to require that it be published in a local newspaper. Personally, I prefer that we do something in the local newspaper, but it would be nice to have somebody volunteer in this group to say, oh, well, I'll send notices to Rosalind Ryan at the Goochland Gazette and make sure that our meetings get published in the Gazette. It'd be nice for someone to do that. So, but we don't have to any longer. We used to, by law, have to put it in the paper. But it was very, very expensive because it ran as a legal ad. You know, legal ads are $7 a line. So you can see how fast it mounts up. Now, I have here methods of domination. I didn't have all of them because there are 4. But one we don't have this year, and that's a primary that is run by the state Board of Elections. The Democrats have a primary. When did you say it was? Sometime.
March, you're talking about
Yeah.
the president? Or
Yeah.
The president's March 3rd.
Yeah, they have a primary. But we're doing conventions this year. I guess that I should not tell you my opinion that I don't think tax money should be spent on political parties nominating efforts. We ought to pay for that ourselves personally. But the Brain Trust in Richmond will not agree to that. They want us as taxpayers to pay for it. So when we have a primary, and we do from time to time, we have all the polls open and having to pay all of those election officials and all of that. So and it's expensive. Now we get reimbursed some by the state, but it doesn't reimburse in full. So just so you know. So that's the primary, but we don't have to, we fortunately aren't dealing with that this year. So we have a canvass, CANVASS, two S's on the end. That's also known as a firehouse primary. You establish 10 or 2 or 1, however you want to do it, to nominate candidates in that primary. We had them in 2011 in District 1 and District 5. Yeah, we had a canvass or firehouse primary in order to nominate candidates for the Board of Supervisors. But so if the polling places are established, it could be the normal polling places, or we could say, okay, we're going to have our primary right here on a Saturday, and everybody come for a period of 4 to 6 hours. Everybody in Goodwin County come and vote. Or if it's for a certain district. But if it's county-wide, we would have, we'd have to have 2 or 3 different ones. One for county-wide, but if it's, say, all 5 districts had primaries, we'd have to have 5 different precincts set up. The ballots are counted after however many hours, and the winner's declared to run in the general election, which is in November. That when you hear about general election, that's the November election. Okay, and this type of primary is run by the Republican Party, by the committee. In my life of 53 years of being active in Republican politics, I have never been involved in a canvass. I was not one who was involved in that primary in 11 because I was running for office myself. And I did not do that. So the other is the mass meeting. And that's generally the method of nomination that we use in Goochland. And most of everybody here is familiar with that. That's where the unit committee, the governing body of the Republican Party of Goochland County, the unit committee, issues the call, makes the arrangements for the meeting, and coordinates it. That's our job. That's what we have to do. After that, the committee is dissolved. When the mass meeting meets, this committee is dissolved and no longer exists. Because one of the things that we're going to do this year is elect a new committee. That we have to, by law, elect every 2 years. Remember I said earlier, in the even years. Now, we may have a mass meeting next year, and it's not, we'll continue with the committee, and it'll just be our responsibility, and we won't be dissolved. You understand that? Okay, I think I'm making it as plain as I can. So the purpose of these meetings, the mass meeting, will vary. Some years, like last year, we were nominating local candidates. Sometimes, like this year, we'll elect a new committee, we'll elect new officers for the committee, and we will elect delegates to conventions. And there's 2 conventions, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But we'll elect delegates to the convention, and you will fill out a paper for the ones that you want to do. So, and then, we can elect delegates to the legislative district. That's for the House of Delegates. That's not this year. We don't have any of them. We did them, I think, last year. And then congressional district, 7, state convention delegates are also elected at the mass meeting. If you want to go to this year's state convention that will be held at Liberty University on May 1st and 2nd in Lynchburg, Virginia, where our president, Donald J. Trump, may show up. He says he's coming. Then you've got to sign up and get to be a delegate. Okay? Then the convention. Now, suppose we wanted to have a local convention. We would have to have a mass meeting first to elect delegates to our local convention. We've never done that here, and I hope we never do. That's kind of a waste of time and money and space and everything else, and air. A convention consists of delegates elected to represent each unit for the purpose of nominating a candidate to represent the entity or other business, to represent that entity. So we might be doing a candidate for the 56th or the 65th legislative district for the House of Delegates. It might be for the state senate. We might be electing people to be delegates to those little conventions. We might be electing people to be our nominees for public office here in Goochland. Or we're electing people to be on our committee. Or we're electing a new chairman. Whatever we do, those are the job of the mass meeting. And then we'll send those delegates to the convention. This year, I think at the state convention, and I have a question. The 7th district, do they elect an elector?
7th district judge.
Okay.
Only for Congress.
Right. That we, and then at the state convention, we'll be electing as delegates. We'll be voting for people to be delegates to the national convention, and we'll be voting for people to be electors when they go after in an electoral college. Those are the electors, and we elect them at the 7th and state convention. Did I get that correct? Good. I thought I knew it, but sometimes, you never know with me. Getting old. Okay. Now, here's some more on mass meetings. And this is really important. I think that I put most of this on your little handout. This definition right here is from the Republican Party of Virginia's plan of organization in page 5. It's on their website that this is a public assembly. Now, we've had people have a hard time understanding this. Anybody who is a resident of Goochland County and a registered voter of Goochland County who agrees with the principles of the Republican Party may be a delegate to our mass meeting. It has absolutely nothing to do with the county committee. Once that mass meeting will be done, we will no longer exist, and we are forming a new committee like we do every 2 years. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So this just tells you that it's a mass meeting, it's a public assembly of an unorganized group. This is an organized group. A mass meeting is an unorganized group, usually voters of an election district or unit. The unit would be Goochland County. The unit would be District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4, however we do that unit. Or, and to transact certain business as defined in the call. Remember when we talked about the call, we have to tell what we're doing. And we have to make it public exactly what we're going to do. And once we've done that, when we get to the meeting, because I saw them do this once here, and it resulted in a complaint being filed, and the results of the mass meeting were returned, but not at this level. The determination of the method of nomination is made by our committee. We decide we're going to have a convention, or we decide if we're going to have a canvass, or we decide if we're going to have a convention. It's up to the county or unit committee. Then there's no registration fee. Now, used to have registration fees. I've been around long enough that I remember when we had a registration fee that you had to pay to go to the mass meeting. But the Democrats said, oh, that's bad. So we didn't do it anymore either. They just said, oh, well, those rich Republicans. And I maintain that probably more Republicans actually work for a living than do Democrats, but that's another story for another day. I've been saying that for at least 40 years. The unit committee cannot change the results of the mass meeting. If somebody does something wrong, then complaints and decisions are filed either with the 7th District Committee or with the State Central Committee of the Republican Party of Virginia, which is their governing body. The local committee cannot do that. If anything, now, last year we had people complaining about our meeting. However, there was a woman there who was an attorney for a potential candidate who was also a registered parliamentarian. And I will tell you, if we had done anything illegal, a complaint would have been filed the next morning. And we did not. But people thought, well, we can't change the agenda. Yes, you can.
Absolutely.
If you have not set the agenda, you know, I mean, you all have an agenda, but we didn't approve the agenda tonight. And generally we don't. But if you have approved the agenda, then you can't change it. But if you have not approved it, you can do whatever you want. And so a motion to change the agenda was absolutely in order. I didn't like it, and I fussed about it, but it still was legal. So, you know, you need to know your stuff. Just saying. Okay. Dates to remember. See, this is a short program. Goochland Mass Meeting, I put there the end of March, because when I put this together, I didn't know what the date was, but it's March 28th, Saturday, March 28th at Goochland County High School. 7th Congressional District Republican Convention to nominate a candidate to defeat Spanberger. Might as well put it out there. My heart's desire. Defeat that horrible woman. And I've got some other things to tell you about that, and I think I might have missed it. Maybe went too far. And then you've got, that's April 25th, set at Virginia State. He said college, it's university.
It's university.
In Effort, Virginia. That's in Dinwiddie County. And then you've got the Virginia Republican Party of Virginia that I already told you, May 1st and 2nd. Save these dates. I need to go back because I did. Here's the other things to keep in mind. This is really important. We have had people ask questions recently about instructed delegations. And they used to do that, where they would have a vote and say, our delegation is going to have to vote for so-and-so. We do not do that anymore. So don't be concerned that there's going to be any kind of instruction, because there will not. You may remain undecided up until the time you cast your vote at the 7th District Convention, at the mass meeting, at the state convention. You can be undecided. And let me tell you, if you're a delegate and you're undecided, you're going to get lots of attention. You absolutely will. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Because when they're working a convention, and that's who they've got to get to vote for them, it's not that they'll be offering you anything they shouldn't, but they'll just be paying a lot of attention. Just saying, that's how it works. I mean, it is. And it's kind of exciting. You go to those conventions, and you're not committed, man, I'm telling you, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. This year, because I'm president of the Republican Women's Club this year, we have a bylaw that I cannot get out and politic. I can't be for anybody this year until they've been nominated. So that is, you know me, that's going to be rough, but I'm doing it. Then finally, you experienced delegates, and this is critical if you've never done it. Decide on at least a second and third choice, or even rank every single candidate. Become familiar with all of the candidates. We have a plethora of good candidates. They're all good Republicans. And so that you can, if your first choice doesn't win, you don't get up and leave. You stay for the second ballot, the third ballot. I was at the convention in Richmond when Mr. Obenshain was nominated for U.S. Senate. That's the day I met Elizabeth Taylor and shook her hand. I was supporting John Warner. there was a time when he was a really, really good senator once. But you know, he was a great senator at first. And I was certain, I was sitting with a man from my church, and I said, I just know John Warner's going to be the next senator. And he said, why are you? I said, I just know it. Well, we sit through 6 ballots. Now, there were 10,000 people there, so counting ballots for 10,000 people takes a long time. And it was about 2 o'clock in the morning when Mr. Obenshain won the nomination. But so sad. You all heard Mark Obenshain. That was his daddy. And he was campaigning and was killed in a plane crash. And so John Warner became the candidate and became the U.S. Senator. And I had said, I just had a feeling he was going to be our next senator. And he was. People never believed me. Nobody believed me when I said Trump's going to get elected. But I was right.
We do now.
Yeah, they believe me now.
And he's going to get reelected.
Yes, reelected
They're
now.
elected. Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, 11th edition. This is a nice little book to know. If you don't know parliamentary procedure, and I will do sometime this year a little thing like this on basic parliamentary procedure, we'll have fun with it, because sometimes that gets people in trouble. And so there's, you know, it's good to know that. And that's how that's one of the reasons and they even have a whole section on mass meetings in Robert's Rules. I read it. It's the most basic form of democracy in the United States. It's a mass meeting. It's wonderful. Messy, but wonderful. And the candidate, this is the bottom line right here, folks. The candidate who gets the most people to sign up to be delegates and show up to vote is the one who's going to win. Period. And that's the end of it. That's the end of it. Those days right there, on April 25th for the 7th District and the Republican Party for June. We're not doing Senate for U.S., primary for U.S. Senate.
Yes, we are.
Oh, we are in June?
June 3rd, I think it is.
Okay. Okay, so your tax dollars are going to pay for a primary this year, but we'll cover that at a later date. Does anybody, and so I have one other thing besides make America great again and keep America great, because I watch those things. There you go. I'll put the man in there, and if you have any questions, I had, when I retired, I had some, they're not business cards because I'm not in business. So I had calling cards. That's what they used to call it. Ladies had calling cards. And so I had calling cards made with my cell phone and my personal email. And you can write it down off of here, or you can have a card, because I had 500 printed. And I'm trying to get rid of them. But so that you can, if you have a question, just let me know. And I'll answer your question as best I can. Now, does anybody have any questions, or did I explain this okay? Yes, ma'am.
Pam, is your presentation online somewhere?
Buddy is filming this whole presentation, and we'll put this online as well. Okay. Yes, sir.
Is there a maximum number of delegates that we can have for each piece, or is it?
Not in the mass meeting, but we have, I think it's going to be 54 delegate votes. So we got 5 people per vote. So that means we can have 270 people go to the 7th district meeting and 270 people vote at the convention. And another 270 can be alternates. And so they would have a fifth of a vote. You understand that? That's the weighted. Somewhere on here I have it. They have votes that are weighted. I think it's the definition of a mass meeting. And the votes can be weighted at the convention. We don't weight the votes in a mass meeting, but we do weight the votes in a convention. And so if we have 54 delegate votes, because we're not a huge place, so we have 54 votes in Goochland. So we have room for 270 people to be regular delegates and plus another 270, what's that, 540 to be delegates to those conventions from Goochland. So I think, one last thing, this stuff with the Second Amendment and every other Bill of Rights amendment that they're attacking and trying to take from us should be the thing that can help the Republican Party in Virginia become a red state. And we need to be capitalizing on this. A young woman I know is so upset over this, and I said, I have known you for years, and you always say, I don't like politics, I don't want to get involved. I said, this is what happens. What is happening in Virginia is what happens when you don't get involved.
That's right.
My father said to me when I got involved in politics, Pam, politics is a dirty business. I said, yes, sir, it is. But as long as I'm in it, the part of soil that I'm standing on is going to be clean. And you all can make that decision as well. And the more clean people we get in, the more rotten people we can get out. You get that?
Yeah.
That's how it works. Thank you all very much.